The scissors froze midair. A single overhead light exposed every knot, every tear, every uneven breath as the homeless woman sat in the luxury salon chair, shoulders trembling. Whispers spread like a disease, clients lifting phones, stylists stiff with disbelief. 2 security guards hovered near the door, hands ready. Then the most dangerous man in Seoul stepped forward. Hyun Jae, the Korean Mafia boss whose name emptied rooms and ended lives with one phone call. He studied the woman's matted hair, so long it brushed the marble floor, then lifted his gaze to her face. Bruised pride, bone-deep exhaustion, quiet defiance. When her eyes finally met his, the air shifted. Something inside him cracked, because he recognized her. Not her face, her name. The receptionist swallowed hard, reading the appointment sheet aloud. Jae. Hyun Jae's jaw tightened. His fingers curled slowly into a fist. Why did that name sound like a ghost he'd buried years ago? Joy flinched, bracing for laughter, for disgust, for guards dragging her out. She prepared to run. Instead, Hyun Jae raised one hand. The entire salon went silent. Lock the doors, he said calmly. Cancel every appointment. Gasps erupted. Who was this woman to stop his empire cold? And why did his eyes soften when a small child pressed his palms to the glass door and whispered, "Mom"? White right pointing backhand index subscribed to love and loyalties before the truth changes everything. Joy didn't need anyone to explain it to her. She felt it the moment the salon doors closed behind her, the subtle shift in air, the way conversations died mid-sentence, the way people stopped moving and less spoken to. This place wasn't just expensive. It was controlled. The mirrors gleamed too perfectly, the marble floors reflected light like surveillance eyes, and every stylist seemed to know exactly where to stand. When Hyun Jae turned away from her and walked toward the back offices, the staff parted instinctively. No questions, no hesitation. That was when the truth settled into her chest like a weight. This salon belonged to him. Not legally, maybe not on paper, but in every way that mattered. Joy sat frozen in the chair, her hands gripping the armrests as whispers circled her again. Sharper now. She caught fragments. Boss, cancel everything. Don't look. A young assistant avoided her eyes entirely, while another stared with open curiosity, as if Joy were a problem dropped into their perfectly ordered world. She wanted to disappear. She wanted to gather her coat, take her child, and vanish back into the city where no one cared who owned what. But when she stood, 2 security guards subtly shifted positions near the exit, not blocking her, just reminding her. Her pulse spiked. "Come," Hyun Jae said, his voice even, unreadable. He didn't touch her. He didn't rush her. He simply waited, confident she would follow. And she did, because refusing felt like stepping off a ledge without knowing how far the fall went. His office was all glass and steel, perched above the city like a throne room without a crown. Soundproof walls muted the salon into silence. The skyline stretched behind him, Seoul glowing and distant, a reminder of how small she was in comparison. Hyun Jae took his seat behind the desk. He didn't invite her to sit, but after a beat, he gestured anyway. It felt deliberate. Power, offered and withdrawn in the same motion. Joy Saturday. Up close. She could feel it, the imbalance. He was calm because he could afford to be. He wore power like a tailored suit, invisible but unmistakable. Security stood outside the glass walls, their reflections hovering behind him like shadows. This man didn't need to threaten her. His existence did it for him. "I don't give charity," Hyun Jae said at last. The words landed harder than shouting would have. Joy lifted her chin. "Good. I didn't ask for it." Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe. Or annoyance. He spoke again, listing options the way one might discuss inventory. A place to sleep. Food. Money. Assistance for her child. Each offer was precise, impersonal, wrapped in control. Every sentence reminded her how easily he could solve her problems, and how easily he could take everything away. Her hands curled into fists beneath the desk. I don't want your pity, Joy said quietly. And I won't trade my dignity for comfort. For the first time, Hyun Jae leaned forward. Just slightly. Dignity doesn't keep children warm, he replied. The words struck low. Intentional. Accurate. Joy swallowed. Her chest burned, not from fear, but from fury. He didn't know her. He didn't know the nights she'd stayed awake just to make sure her child was breathing, the days she'd skipped meals so small hands could eat. He saw her circumstances, not her strength. And yet, he was right about one thing. Walking away would mean uncertainty. Again. What do you want? She asked. He studied her in silence, as if weighing something far heavier than the moment called for. When he finally spoke, his tone had changed. Not softer, but more focused. A temporary arrangement, he said. You stay. You wake. You keep quiet. In return, you and your child are safe. Joy's breath caught. And when it's no longer convenient for you. His gaze sharpened. Then it ends. No contracts. No paperwork. No witnesses. Just his word. The most dangerous currency of all. Joy stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. No, she said. I won't be owned. Hyun Jae rose as well. The air between them tightened, charged with something unspoken. He was taller than she'd realized, his presence closing the space without moving closer. For a moment, she thought she saw something beneath his composure. Regret, maybe. Or recognition. You think this is about ownership, he said. It isn't. Then why me? Joy demanded. Why not write a check and forget I exist? The question hung between them. For the first time since she'd met him, Hyun Jae didn't answer immediately. His jaw tensed, his eyes darkening as if she'd struck a nerve she wasn't meant to see. He knew something. She felt it. Something about her past. Joy turned toward the door. I'm leaving. She reached for the handle. Hyun Jae stepped into her path, not aggressively, not angrily. Just enough to block the exit. His voice dropped, firm and final. Stay, he said. This isn't finished. The door closed behind her with a soft, irreversible click. And Joy realized the most dangerous thing wasn't his power. It was his interest. Joy learned quickly that Hyun Jae's world ran on rules no one bothered to explain. The salon was only the surface, polished, beautiful, deceptive. Behind it existed a quiet machine of control, schedules infrared tight, staff trained to anticipate needs before words were spoken, security that blended into architecture. She was given a temporary badge, a narrow list of permitted areas, and instructions delivered politely but without room for interpretation. Freedom Hay was measured, rationed, and watched. During the day, she worked. Not as a client, not as charity, as labor, cleaning stations, folding towels, assisting silently when asked. Some stylists ignored her completely. Others studied her like a curiosity they weren't sure how to name. Joy kept her head down. She had learned long ago that visibility could be dangerous. Still, she felt Hyun Jae's presence even when he wasn't there, his influence in the way doors opened, in the way conversations stopped when she entered a room. At night, she was driven to his penthouse. The first time the elevator opened into that space, Joy stopped breathing. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped the apartment, revealing a city that looked unreal from this height. Lights scattered like constellations, traffic moving silently below. Everything inside was neutral. Stone, glass, clean lines. No photographs. No warmth. A place designed for control, not comfort. This is temporary, Hyun Jae said, as if reading her thoughts. Joy nodded, though something in her chest tightened. Temporary things had a way of becoming traps. He tested her boundaries without ever touching them. Sometimes it was silence, long, deliberate pauses where he waited to see if she would fill the space, explain herself, apologize for existing. She never did. Other times it was proximity, standing too close, not invading, just close enough to remind her he could. Joy met each test with stillness. She answered when spoken to. She refused when pushed. She didn't thank him for things she earned. Hyun Jae noticed. He noticed how she straightened when spoken to directly, how she never lowered her gaze unless exhaustion forced her to. He noticed how she softened only around her child. The little one, small, observant, too quiet for their age, changed the energy of every room. Hyun Jae had not expected that. Children were chaos, weakness, liabilities. And yet, when the child laughed, the penthouse felt less like a fortress and more like a place people might live. Hyun Jae never commented on it, but he lingered longer in shared spaces, stayed silent instead of retreating to his office. Once, Joy caught him watching them from across the room, his expression unreadable. "You don't have to stare," she said carefully. "I'm not," he replied. But he was. The tension between them grew in what was not said, in shared meals eaten quietly across a wide table, in glances that lasted a second too long before being cut short, in moments where his hand hovered near hers before pulling away, as if reminding himself of a rule he had set. Joy felt it too, the pull, unwanted and dangerous. Attraction wrapped in caution, curiosity sharpened by distrust. She reminded herself daily, this man was not safe. The child complicated everything. One evening, after a long day, Joy returned to find her child asleep on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that wasn't hers. Hyun Jae stood nearby, awkward, uncertain, as if unsure what to do with his own hands. "They wouldn't sleep," he said. "I didn't want to wake you." Joy's defenses flickered. Just for a moment. "Thank you," she said. The word seemed to surprise him more than her refusal ever had. Days passed. Routines formed. Joy began to believe, dangerously, that this arrangement might hold. That survival didn't always have to mean running. Gratitude crept in, unwelcome and fragile. She hated it. Gratitude gave power to the wrong people. Then she overheard a conversation that shattered it. Two men spoke in low voices near the private elevator, unaware she was within earshot. Names passed between them like currency. Deals. Timelines. And then, a name she hadn't heard in years. Not Hyun Jae. His other name. The one he used before the empire. Before the salon. Before the man he'd become. Joy's breath caught painfully in her throat. That name was attached to a memory she had buried deep, an opportunity that vanished overnight, a training program abruptly cancelled, accusation she was never allowed to defend herself against. A door slammed shut so suddenly it altered the course of her life. She had been told it was politics, money, bad timing. But now she understood. Her hands shook as pieces fell into place. The timing, the power, the quiet efficiency with which her future had been erased. Hyun Jae hadn't known her then, not her face, not her story, but he had signed off on the decision that destroyed her path. Collateral damage. Inconvenient and forgotten. Except she hadn't been forgotten. Not by him. She turned slowly, her gaze finding him across the room. Hyun Jae stood still, watching her with that same unreadable calm, but this time she saw something else beneath it. Guilt. Gratitude drained out of her like blood from an open wound. Suspicion took its place. And Joy realized the most dangerous game wasn't attraction. It was truth waiting too long to be spoken. Joy didn't sleep that night. The penthouse felt different once the truth took root. Smaller, colder, its clean lines suddenly suffocating. Every polished surface reflected something she no longer trusted. She sat on the edge of the bed while her child slept beside her, steady breaths rising and falling, unaware that the fragile balance holding their world together was already cracking. The memory came back without permission. Years ago, Joy had stood in a modest training salon, her hands trembling with excitement as she waited to be called in. She had been younger then. Hope still lived easily in her chest. The program promised mentorship, certification, a future she could build with skill instead of survival. She remembered the email, short, formal, devastating. Program terminated. Funding withdrawn. Applicants released without appeal. No explanation. No second chance. Just a door closing so quietly it took years to realize how much had been taken. She remembered what followed. The odd jobs. The humiliation of being almost something. The relationship she stayed in too long because stability felt safer than dreams. The night she left with nothing but a bag and a child on her hip. She had blamed herself for all of it. Lack of talent. Bad timing. Weakness. She hadn't known there was a name behind the decision. Hyun Jae. Morning came heavy and unforgiving. Joy waited until the penthouse filled with quiet movement. Staff passing through. Security rotating shifts. She wanted witnesses. Not protection. Truth. When Hyun Jae entered the living space, dressed in his usual restraint, she didn't greet him. She stood perfectly still, her spine straight, her hands at her sides. "Sit," he said. "No," she replied. That alone shifted the room. "You know my name," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. "The other one." Hyun Jae froze. Not visibly, not dramatically, but something in his eyes changed, darkening, tightening, as if a door inside him had been forced open. "Who told you?" he asked. "I remembered," Joy said. "I remembered what disappeared when your money moved." Silence pressed down on them, thick and crushing. The city beyond the windows felt very far away. Hyun Jae exhaled slowly. "I didn't know you," he said. "I never saw your file. It was a financial decision. Hundreds of programs ended that year." "You don't get to reduce my life to a statistic," Joy snapped, her control finally splintering. "You don't get to say it was nothing just because you didn't look at my face." "I didn't say it was nothing," he replied quietly, "but you lived like it was." The words cut deeper than shouting ever could. Joy felt the weight of years crash through her. Every compromise, every swallowed dream, every night she told herself survival was enough. She stepped closer, unafraid now. "You erased my future," she said, "and now you want to rewrite it like this." She gestured around the penthouse, the luxury, the gods, with conditions, with silence. Hyun Jae's jaw tightened. "I'm trying to fix it." "No," Joy said sharply. "You're trying to control it." The accusation landed true. He took a step toward her. "You and your child are safe here." "Safe isn't free," she shot back. "Safe with you means I owe you. My time, my voice, my choices." "That's not what I want," he said, and for the first time, his composure fractured. "I want to make it right." Joy laughed, a short, broken sound. "There's no right that puts me under your roof and calls it kindness." Her child stayed, murmuring softly in sleep. The sound grounded her. Strength surged where anger had been. "I won't be owned," she said. "I won't be saved. And I won't be silenced so you can sleep at night." Hyun Jae's voice dropped. "If you walk out, you lose everything I can protect you from." Joy met his gaze without flinching. "I already lost everything once," she said. "I survived it without you." She turned toward the bedroom, moving quickly now. She packed with efficiency born of practice. Few clothes, essentials, her child's things. When she emerged, Hyun Jae stood in the doorway. "Don't do this," he said. Joy paused, her eyes burning. "You already did," she replied. Security froze when she passed them. No one touched her. No one spoke. The elevator ride down felt endless. When the doors finally opened into the public lobby, reality struck hard and fast. Cameras, phones, whispers. Someone recognized her from the salon. Someone recognized him from the rumors. A narrative formed instantly, dangerous, incomplete, public. Joy didn't look back. By nightfall, the fallout was everywhere. Blogs, news sites, speculation wrapped in scandal. Mafia boss shelters mystery woman. Power and control behind luxury fronts. Hyun Jae's name trended for all the wrong reasons. He stood alone in the penthouse, the silence unbearable now, replaying every word she'd said, every truth he'd avoided. He had built an empire on anticipation and control, but he had underestimated one thing: her refusal. Joy disappeared into the city with nothing but her resolve and her child's hand in hers. No protection, no safety net, just dignity reclaimed at a devastating cost. As Hyun Jae stared out over Seoul, something hollowed out inside him. For the first time in years, power felt useless, and the question he couldn't escape echoed louder than any threat he'd ever faced. Had he already lost her forever? Hyun Jae did not sleep after Joy left. He stood in the penthouse long after the city dimmed, staring at a space that no longer held her presence. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was accusatory. Every polished surface reflected his failure. He had spent his life believing control could correct any mistake, that power could undo consequences. Joy had shattered that illusion with a single act of defiance. For the first time, he didn't issue orders to regain control. He dismantled it. The following days moved like a controlled demolition. Shell companies dissolved. Accounts froze. Partnerships severed without warning. Men who had stood beside him for years found themselves suddenly exposed, unprotected. Hyun Jae withdrew influence from sectors that thrived on fear and silence, the same systems that had once erased joy without consequence. It wasn't strategy. It was confession, executed in silence. Enemies noticed. So did the media. Rumors spread fast. The untouchable boss was bleeding his own empire dry. A power vacuum formed, dangerous and impatient. Advisors warned him. Security urged caution. Hyun Jae ignored them all, because protection built on fear was the very thing Joy had rejected. He found her without cornering her. A small community center on the edge of the city. Bright murals. Children's voices spilling into the street. Joy stood outside, watching her child laugh with others, her posture guarded but steady. She looked thinner, tired, free in a way that hurt to witness. Hyun Jae didn't approach. Not yet. He waited for the moment when running wouldn't be required. That moment came sooner than expected. A press conference was called, ostensibly about restructuring, accountability, and transparency. But everyone knew it was something else. Rivals gathered, hungry. Cameras lined the street. Names that once bowed to him now waited to see him fall. Joy arrived only because she was told the truth would be spoken aloud. She stood at the back of the crowd, her child's hand locked tightly in hers, prepared to leave at the first sign of manipulation. Hyun Jae stepped onto the stage alone. No entourage, no shield. His voice carried without force. I built power by avoiding consequences, he said, by believing distance absolved responsibility. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Years ago, he continued, a decision made in my name destroyed a future I never bothered to see. Cameras swung wildly. Joy's breath caught. I didn't know her face, Hyun Jae said, eyes steady. But I knew the cost, and I chose not to care. The words were not softened, not defended. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped down from the stage, walked through the crowd, and stopped in front of Joy. Every camera turned. Hyun Jae lowered himself to one knee. Gasps erupted. Enemies froze. The city held its breath. This isn't an apology meant to erase damage, he said quietly, only loud enough to be heard. It's an admission that I don't deserve forgiveness. Joy stared at him, stunned. I won't ask you to stay, he continued. I won't offer protection in exchange for silence. I won't make love conditional. His gaze lifted, to her child. I am responsible for what I took, he said, and I will spend my life returning it, whether you stand beside me or not. He turned back to Joy. I choose you, he said, publicly, without ownership, without leverage. Joy's chest burned. This wasn't the man who blocked her exit. This wasn't the voice of control. This was surrender. Security shifted nervously. Rivals whispered. The empire watched its king kneel. Joy spoke at last. You don't get to buy redemption, she said. I know, Hyun Jae replied. That's why I'm paying it. She looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at the world that had once swallowed her quietly and now watched her loudly. Then she reached for her child and took one step forward, not to lift him, not to embrace him, but to stand beside him. I don't belong to you, Joy said clearly. I know, Hyun Jae answered. I won't be hidden, she continued. You won't be, he said. I won't be used to clean your conscience. I will live with it, he replied. She exhaled slowly. Then, finally, she placed her hand in his. The reaction was immediate. Headlines rewrote themselves in real time. Power shifted, not upward, but inward. Hyun Jae rose, not as a ruler, but as a man stripped of illusion. That night, Joy returned to the penthouse, not as refuge, but as choice. The guards stood down. Doors remained open. No commands were given. For the first time, the space felt earned. Loyalty was no longer demanded. It was offered, and it held. The house was quiet in the way peace is quiet. Not empty, not tense, but settled. Morning light slipped through wide windows, warming wooden floors instead of reflecting off marble. The city was still there, humming in the distance, but it no longer pressed in on them. This home had no guards at the door, no cameras watching every breath. Just space. Choice. Joy stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, humming softly as she worked. Not because she had to, because she wanted to. Her workstation sat by the window, clean and simple, tools laid out with intention. She had opened a small studio nearby, not with his money, not under his name. Clients came because of her hands, her skill, her patience. For the first time, work didn't feel like survival. It felt like expression. Laughter spilled down the hallway. Her child ran past, barefoot and fearless, chasing a paper airplane that dipped and glided through the living room. The sound of that laughter, full, unguarded, was something Joy never took for granted. It was proof of safety, of healing, of a life no longer built on waiting for the next loss. Hyun Jae watched from the doorway, coffee cooling in his hands. He moved differently now, slower, present. The sharp edges of command had softened into something steadier. People still knew his name, but it no longer emptied rooms. It opened conversations. Trust replaced fear where power once stood. He listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, it carried weight earned through accountability, not threat. Joy met his gaze across the room. No ownership lived there. No debt. Just partnership. Later, as the sun climbed higher, they sat together on the floor while the child leaned between them, small hands warm in theirs. No grand declarations. No promises shouted to the world. Just quiet loyalty, built. Daily, deliberately. Some loves are loud. The strongest ones are chosen in silence. And this one was finally free. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Love and Loyalties and comment which couple you want next.